Senator for the state of Victoria, joining us this Monday for Polygraph a little bit later than we expected. James Paterson, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Raf.
You all do it. That's what a lot of people think. What's the difference between you and them? Liberal, Labor, everybody branch tax.
I absolutely acknowledge, Raf, political parties are not perfect institutions full of perfect people, and at times the Liberal Party has not lived up to its best standards. But in my 15 years as a Liberal Party member, I have never seen or heard of anything quite like this. I have to hand it to the Labor Party and to Mr Somyurek here. They take the cake here, and we look like amateurs compared to them. This is institutionalised, endemic cultural failure that is leading to a very sick political party and the extraordinary scenes we saw last night on 60 Minutes.
How's it different to what goes on in the Liberal Party?
Well, I've never seen a cabinet minister withdraw $2,000 from an ATM and hand it to a ministerial staffer in a car park in order to go and pay for memberships,
their allegations
allegedly.
He vehemently denies. Let me insert that, but yes, go on.
I've never seen that. I've never heard of that. It's extraordinary. I've never seen footage like that, heard phone calls like that. I've never seen people speak about ethnic communities in the patronising way that he did. I've never seen anyone or heard anyone speak in such a appallingly sexist way about the Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence and the Minister for Women. I've never heard someone speak in such a patronising way about their supposed friends who are young LGBTI members of the party. It was an incredible sight, and the Liberal Party, well, I acknowledge, Raf, is not perfect. We have never seen anything like that.
Surely in the past there have been allegations that Liberal Party people are paying for the memberships of others. That's an endemic part of branch stacking. I'm sure that allegation's been made inside the Liberal Party before.
Yes, and I think there's probably been public reports speculating that, and the Liberal Party takes those matters very seriously because it undermines the integrity of our open pre-selection system where every single member has a vote. The difference with our pre-selection system, though, Raf, in Victoria is that to exercise your vote and to have influence, you actually have to turn up to a pre-selection or turn up to an AGM. And so if you've got people sitting on the membership list who are not real members, who didn't pay for their own membership, who don't have an interest in the party...
Do they still have proxy votes in Victoria, in the Labor Party?
No, we don't. No, so it's of no value to do that in the Liberal Party in Victoria. You have to actually sign up people who want to be engaged, who want to participate.
Sorry, forgive my interruption, James, but it's the same in Labor now. I don't think you can vote by proxy in a pre-selection anymore. And I think also in Labor now in Victoria, you've got to be a member for 2 years before you vote in pre-selection. So is there a difference there?
As I understand it, Raf, signing up members who are not active in the Labor Party significantly inflates your entitlements to votes within the party. It doesn't work the same way in a Liberal Party pre-selection. It's one member, one vote. So you could have 1,000 members on the list who didn't pay their membership and weren't real people, but if they don't turn up and show an interest in Liberal Party meetings, they have no influence, so there's no point doing it. But Labor clearly, as demonstrated last night, has a real incentive to do that.
Look, just for the sake of... just inserting a little bit of the other political voices of the day, the opposition leader, Anthony Albanese, was asked this morning, keep this in mind, Adam Somyurek was on the national executive of the Labor Party. Here, the opposition leader was asked if he had met Adam Somyurek before.
I've barely met the bloke. The fact is that if he thinks that no one watching that program outside of Victoria, including my federal colleagues, would have heard of this bloke. It's as simple as that. You know, that's the nature of a backroom guy like this individual.
James Paterson, as a Liberal senator, that's kind of fair, isn't it?
I don't think it's credible, to be honest. Raf, Adam Somyurek is a notorious figure within the Victorian Labor Party who every Liberal Party MP is intimately familiar with. It beggars belief that Anthony Albanese is not familiar with him, particularly given they sat around the same table as members of the national executive of the Labor Party together.
But familiar is different to ongoing relationship, isn't it? Might be there.
Sure, and I don't know whether they regularly catch up for beers or not, but in a professional sense, they are inextricably linked. And even if they don't have a close relationship, some of the people Adam Somyurek named in those tapes last night are members of Anthony Albanese's own caucus. And it doesn't ring true to say that that the first time Anthony Albanese has ever heard of these kind of conduct was last night in 60 Minutes.
Well, he didn't say that. He said, I have barely met the bloke. But still, 1300 222 774 is the phone number. Before I move on to China, which I know is significant for you and significant for lots of people listening, can I hold you, James Paterson, accountable for other people in the Liberal Party? If they do bad things, but you don't know them well, can I hold you accountable for their actions?
I mean, I'm someone who believes in personal responsibility, Raf, and I think we should all be held to our own standards, but political leaders take on a greater responsibility. A leader of a political party does take on greater responsibility, and if they don't lead by example and take action against incidents like this, well, then I think they fail a test of leadership.
Before I ask you your opinion on this Chinese banking law, they have imposed a new law in Hong Kong that you're concerned Australian banks should not have any part of. But what do you believe that law would do? If I'm a member of if I've got an account at NAB or Westpac, if those two banks signal some sort of support for that Chinese banking law in Hong Kong, has that got any implications for me as a NAB account holder?
The short answer is we don't know, Raf, but I think it would be a real mistake for banks to bend to the demands of the Chinese Communist Party as the HSBC has done, because through past experience we know that it's the first request you get to comply is not the last request you get to comply. And we saw that spectacularly with Cathay Pacific, which is a Hong Kong-based company. The CEO was asked to provide a list of the names of his employees who participated in the Hong Kong protests, and understanding the very grave consequences that would be visited upon them if he did so. He declined to do so and resigned. And the pressure on that company and the pressure on other companies in Hong Kong has only ratcheted up since. And I think HSBC will find the same thing. If the Chinese Communist Party threatens their business interests and in order to get them to make a statement in support of the Hong Kong security laws, what's to stop them next time asking them for much more private information about their account holders or their customers? That is the fear that I would have.
So it's not really clear, is it? I understand you don't want an Australian bank to support a Chinese banking law, but it's not really clear whether or not that support from an Australian bank would have any impact on account holders with that Australian bank.
Oh, absolutely, Raf. It's not clear. It's just a concern and a fear that it might, and I think it's a reasonably well-founded fear based on the experience we've seen of other companies. It's a slippery slope once you start to get involved in politics and make political statements in support of an authoritarian regime. Don't expect that the first request they make of you will be the only request they make of you.
Did Australia waste its political capital on an inquiry into the virus? We've experienced significant backlash on our industries from universities through to Bali. Was that the right fight to pick? I know you've expressed interest in the rights of Uyghurs in China. Was that the right hill to die on, the inquiry into the virus?
I think the premise of the question is flawed, Raf, because it assumes that had we not done that, we wouldn't be encountering these things, or that there wouldn't be other things in the future we would want to advocate for that wouldn't cause the same consequences, or that we're the only country in the world experiencing these kind of threats. Sweden, for example, has protested about a Swedish citizen in Hong Kong who sells books, who was arrested and has been detained in awful circumstances. They've had a very serious campaign of economic coercion waged against them. Finland and Norway and Germany and Britain and other countries have all had their own disputes with China. Right now, there's a very serious border dispute between India and China. New Zealand signalled its public support for a COVID inquiry. They received threats of economic coercion. I mean, the only pathway to ensure that you never receive and that a threat of economic coercion is never followed upon is never to say anything at all.
So can I stop you there? Do you think we would have had a problem with Bali or uni students if we'd been silent on the coronavirus inquiry and the World Health Organisation?
I think we would have had I think we already had some problems in the relationship between Australia and China, and I think inevitably in the future, whether it was over COVID-19 or another issue consistent with our values and our national interests, we would have encountered the same behaviour. And the only way to prevent that behaviour from occurring in the future is to demonstrate that it doesn't work, to show that attempts to coerce us won't change what we stand for, what we believe in, and therefore that they're futile.
Would you have preferred the government had made more noise about the Uyghurs when that Four Corners story was about, and when all those stories from the New York Times were about around there's 1 million people there being oppressed by China? Would you have rather we had kicked up a fuss about China in a louder fashion around that issue than the virus?
to be fair to the government and particularly to the Foreign Minister, Maurice Payne, they have been outspoken about this. Maurice Payne gave an excellent speech on human rights in China last year and Australia's engagement with those issues. I'm very proud when I see the Prime Minister or the Foreign Minister stand up on the global stage and take a leadership role. Australia has a very important role in the world in doing that because other countries look to us and say, well, if Australia, who is as exposed as we are to trade with China, can have the courage to raise these issues, then we should too. And I think it gives great heart and great encouragement to others.
How long are you going to keep the ISO beard for?
Well, until the Chief Medical Officer says the pandemic period is over, it's still technically an ISO beard. So it's really in Brendan Murphy's hands, not mine.
Can I ask a rude question?
Sure.
Are you growing it because you look very young on television?
No, I'm not. I'm not doing it for that reason, Raf. I'm 32, and there's nothing I can do to change that, nor anything I would wish to do to change that. It's quite good being a young person, so I'm told.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Raf.